Hey guys, I just hopped into some GG 500 action. This is, again, just time of day. This is the highest stakes running, so just play 4 tables of 500. Hopefully these games don't break and we just get, at least half hour or so of gameplay. Gonna have to call this type of hand sometimes. I think I'm just gonna fold when I have the Queen of Clubs though. But versus that size, can't just call flushes. But we definitely have like top pairs, 2 pairs, flushes, and then some hands slightly better. Top right versus the overbet, I actually can just fold this on the flop. And I'm gonna start with a small bet here on the 993 bottom right. I'm gonna start with a bet here. And we're gonna fold the 10-9 suited to a 3-bet. And I think I'm gonna call this time here with the ace-4. Chop it up. Check back this hand, and then showdown if given the chance. I don't think we can bet here. So I think we often win. But we have to be a little careful here, and it's hard to get called by worse. Top right, you could play a variety of strategies here. I'm gonna start with small bet. I think on this disconnected of a board, small bet's going to be preferred. These boards are pretty good for us. We interact a lot with the high cards. We have a lot of king queen type holdings, just large cards in general, where our opponent's going to have a lot more of the low cards. And here against a recreational player top left, I'm going to start with a bet, and we're going to jam it in here with the ace king. On this turn, we're going to have to do a fair amount of checking. Not much reason to bet this in, and we're going to try and show down. We definitely have watch here. Top left, 9 of clubs. No, 9 not jet. Sorry, 9 of clubs isn't good in general. Definitely going to check here. Potentially bluff some rivers. And bottom left, I think we have a fair amount of showdown value here. So we'll start with a check. And just check fold top left. Okay. Definitely a spot he should. I mean, his jack X just typically want to bet that spot. I'm gonna start with check here. Top right. Can't see bet as much multi-way. Good hand to start betting here. Bottom right, we have diamond club. And top left, I'm gonna actually call here with 2 potentially recreational players in the blinds. And this hand can do some stuff on the flop. I'm gonna start with a block bet here, top right, when it goes check twice. I don't really want to bluff as much here. I'd rather actually have the 8 of diamonds here. And a lot of action. We're playing short-handed, so we're playing a lot of hands. Bottom left, I'm gonna start with the bet. Top left, I'm gonna sometimes bet this hand. Start with check here. On this turn, Queen of Spades isn't great, but I don't think it's the worst. The 9 also isn't great, so I don't want to pure bet this hand. But we'll bet it this time. Bottom right. Having the 8 is bad. Having the ace is good. I think we're going to go for a raise here. And just show down top left with the ace deuce. We're definitely going to have flushes in that line. We're not going to barrel all of our flush draws on the turn. I think our hand is like definitely a reasonable barrel at a frequency on turn 2. Like you can't just pick only the best candidates. Versus the min raise, I'm going to defend the 5 deuce suited. Versus the min raise here, I'm also going to defend the ace 4 off. Going to play big and check here. I don't double flush draw. Yeah, I mean, we can't bet this hand always, but I'm going to bet this time. And just fold bottom left multi-way. with no equity. I'll add some, I don't think it'll run it this time. We'll add some high stakes tables off to the side, just in the off chance someone sits. But more than likely, we'll just be focusing on these tables here. Tables are kind of filling up too, so I would think the bulk of the people watching this content, play mainly 6 max, right? There's not, especially if you're playing sub 1 KNL, there's not a ton of short-handed games that run. They usually fill up pretty quick. Anyways, we're gonna 3-bet bottom right with the ace king offsuit. Got same hand, different suits. Unfortunately, no action top left. But we'll start with 3-bet here with the ace king. And we're also gonna open up top left with the king 8 offsuit, blind versus blind. Reasonable board for the small blinds range. Just start with a small bet. And these boards are going to be pretty close to a range bet on like these disconnect board, especially if like the 8 makes things a little dicey, or not dicey we'll say, but like not as good. If it's like queen 7-3, it's very hard for our position to defend enough. On this turn, we're not going to want to barrel this type of hand too often, especially if we double blocked the ace, if we had a diamond, there's a lot of things that could shift this hand towards a bet. And I'm going to start with a half pot-ish bet here. And so we're going to check back. And then we're definitely going to barrel the turn here, bottom left. Top right, top left. We have some showdown value here. We should chop for some king highs. And bottom right, I think, again, this hand doesn't really need to go in our bet check bet line. Especially, if our opponent's checking too many hands like this. And on this river, we're definitely going to value bet bottom left. I think we're going to play some sort of like, we'll say size like this, like 67 and all in on this river. It's very hard for our opponent to arrive with a king on this river. Has to have like king 8. We instantly get jammed on for not a ton more money. I think I'm gonna call. Yeah, just snap jam, and the fact that he's basically, when he gets to the river, he's basically saying he improved on this king somehow. But we blocked that. So it felt like a reasonable hand to call. Top right, very good board for our 3-bet range. Very good board for our hand. Let's start with a bet. Our opponent should definitely play some relatively aggressive check raising strategy on this board. But unfortunately, we just bet and get a fold. But then we get kings the next hand, so maybe more good stuff can happen now. We see an open from a player I've never played against before. I'm just going to start with 3-bet. We did see this player overbet flop earlier on like an ace queen X board. Doesn't necessarily mean he's a professional, but that is something that you'll see more often from a professional. This board's going to be a pretty high frequency bet. Basically, our opponent's bulk of their range is a bluff catcher, so just that's usually a spot to do a lot of betting. If they haven't flopped a set of 8s, 4s, or deuces, they're going to be struggling to defend. Turn, I'm going to go with a check this time. Jacks, queens are going to be very high frequency bets. If we have a hand like ace 10, I'm going to want to bet a lot. This hand with a heart, I think, is a reasonable check. Typically, when we face a bet here, we are going to want to check raise. And when it goes check, check, we have 2 options, basically shove or check, I think, with this hand. And I think I'm going to go for the shove this time. we're gonna looked up here by ace 4 and lose. I didn't mean to say that's what was gonna happen there. It did happen that time. But basically I was gonna say that's like the only hand we really lose to is ace 4. So, no big deal. Lost ace 4 that time. But it looked like I was calling it before it happened. The rest of my thought process was going to be there's plenty of other hands we beat. Unfortunately, he had one of the hands we lose to. He'll have some traps, some sets that check the turn. But outside of that, we have like the effective nuts on that river, and then we have plenty of hands to bluff with as well. Just like any combination of cards that aren't paired, that aren't ace high, are going to make reasonable bluffs in that spot. We're going to isolate versus a limp with ace queen off. Don't want to go necessarily too big here just because his stack size, he could also be playing some limp 3-bets here. So we don't want to go too crazy with our ISO size and just allow that portion of his range to benefit too much. Bottom left, we're going to isolate this if given the opportunity. This opponent is the player that just made his very interesting play with the 4-3 offsuit. Check back here with ace queen. I'm going to start with a mix of bet and check here with this hand. Start with a bet. Turn, we're going to call ace queen. And here I'm going to barrel my queen jack. Queen of hearts, I guess we're going to let this one go. Snap call. We saw how this opponent did with the 4-3 offsuit in the prior hand. So unless he has a hand like king 10 or king jack, which we block with a club, I don't think we're going to get a ton of folds out of him. So I'm just going to give this one up. Yeah, I mean, based on how he played the 4-3, I'm not convinced betting this for a size other than all in would have got a fold. And then even for all in, I'm not 100% sure this guy wanted to fold. So I'm happy with the fact that he's calling 7-6 on that turn, it tells you two things. It tells you he's getting to the river too wide, but the 4-3 hand from the other example tells you that if you bet and put him in a spot where he has to fold his hand, he might just turn those all into bluffs, right? So if that is his tendency, then our value will do very well, and we have to be a little more selective with some of our bluffs. So I think shoving could be reasonable there, but the problem with that is once we shove, we're trying to make strong hand. Like obviously he's going to be very wide. We've seen that. But when you go all in on that river, your opponent is supposed to be folding or at least indifferent with very strong hands. And I do not think that's going to happen from his shoes. Like if he just has, he's definitely never going to fold 2-pair. And if he has any top pair, any like pair with a club, I think that type of player is going to just, not want to fold. So our tendencies may adjust as we see more from our opponent, but that 4-3 hand is an indication that we need to be careful, especially in big pots against him. Bottom right, open up ace, queen, offsuit. So having said everything we just said, we're pretty incentivized to just start building a pot with this hand. I don't think we need to go enormous here though, because we do want our opponent to be able to continue pretty speculatively, which we've seen. Unfortunately, snap folds here, but yeah, I don't want to force him to fold some of his reasonable holdings. Here, I think I have like one of two options. I think I'm just gonna go for the larger size bet here. Unfortunately, we do block his like king X of diamonds, which are never folding. On this river, it's good to have the king of diamonds for sure. And depending on his size, the tank, check. I'm definitely gonna bet. And I'm gonna I'm basically gonna bet. I'm gonna bet call, but I want to leave him room to like maybe turn like king 10 with a 10 of diamonds into a bluff. I three bet this sometimes. Will be disciplined. 8-4 suited bottom left, not a great hand, but incentivized to get involved with this opponent. Especially with turns like that. So multi-way, you typically don't want to use like very large sizes in this on this turn. Exploitatively, I could obviously just like do whatever I want with my hand, but I think this hand's pretty reasonable to just start with a small bet. We want him to just like continue wide. We want, you know, when we have this class of hand, we kind of want everyone to continue wide. Folding deuces under the gun. But unfortunately, we just take it down. Versus a limp, these hands make reasonable raises and you know, just your low suited stuff. Because if he's limping too wide of a range, if we get him to fold like king 4 off, that's a pretty good result for us. And then this board, he's going to lack, especially the strong ace-x. And then he's also going to, it's not just his ace-x here that's important. He's also going to lack pocket pairs that are higher than an 8. So 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, kings. So just like a lot of his range is going to struggle here. So for that reason, I'm gonna continue barreling turn. And definitely bluff this hand on some rivers. I think this river, I don't have any, like if I'm bluffing here with a 9 or 10 in my hand. So if I have like queen 9 type hand, I would potentially shove. But I think this hand I'm just going to bet and target his, you know, king high hearts, 8x of hearts kind of hands. Once I get checked to twice bottom left, we typically don't want to go too big in this spot. I mean, you can play multiple strategies, but a lot of times on these mono boards, you don't want to go too big early in the hand. And then you polarize on rivers. But against this opponent, I think like he's just going to mainly bet his very good hands when the flop checks through. So I don't expect a ton of check raises. My hand will struggle if I face check raise because I'm dead versus value, but the less often. If I think my opponent will not be check raising enough in that line, or even more importantly, if I don't think he'll have enough value in that line, then I'm able to get away with more like bigger bets. Min raise, I'm going to defend this versus this opponent. He's been quite passive. So I just think I'll realize this board is going to, you know, I'm going to struggle on and I'm going to have to just fold this hand. But I think I'll just win way too many pots on the like boards that aren't this bad for me. I'm going to go for a check raise over here. Basically, we block almost all of our opponent's value. His size is interesting. And he bet quite big quite quickly. So I think I'm going to just start with a raise. I think mainly the size is my preferred raise size. He's kind of saying ace 7s or 6s or ace jack, and we block 7s and 6s. It's definitely not the best turn. I don't think we want to narrow his range. So I'm going to check. Basically, this turn is discounted. I don't necessarily think he has a ton of 10-9. So it's not that I don't think we have the best hand still here often. It's just I don't really want to bloat the pot and play a weird SPR on river. And then here, I don't really think he has a ton of 9x. Has to be like 8-9 exactly. But I also think he just mainly has air here. So I'm going to go for a check. Like, I'm going to miss value versus ace jack specifically. Yeah, I mean, sure, that hand too. Nice hand from our opponent. And here, ace 9-8. You can definitely play some big bet and check. this hand wouldn't even, if you're playing that strategy, this hand actually makes a reasonable check sometimes. Yeah, so I think like there's nothing wrong with the way he played his hand. There's just not that, like, it's basically ace jack and king jack that I'm getting missing value against, so I don't mind the check. On this low board, low boards are not going to be that good for you, big blind versus small blind. Sorry, small blind, big blind. This board's not that bad, but just because, you know, he doesn't have a ton of two pairs and stuff anyways. But definitely not a board we could just like always bet. But in this line, I'm mainly just going to play small bets and checks after it goes check check on this type of turn. Allows me to value bet thinner. And then on that river, I still beat all of his one pair holdings. Ace 6, Ace 4, King 4, King 6. And a lot of his 5x bet the flop. So I'm actually going to just go for a small bet. And then we'll have a decision if he raises. So this hand is not... I'm probably going to just fold this one. Blocking 10-8 and 8-9. So yeah, I'm okay with that fold this. This would be like among the thinnest hands I would value bet as well, which is relevant. So 8's bad. We are close to bottom of range for value betting. I'm just gonna grab a 200 L table for the time being. Three bet here with the tens. Our opponent calls. I'm going to just start with a small bet. Very good board for our range. In this rake environment, even versus min raise, there's not a ton of incentive to flat these positions. So, especially versus, I believe this guy is some sort of reg. So, we have I'm actually just gonna immediately leave this table and replace it because we got sat at our 500 L table. I'm gonna flat here. If he was deeper, I would just 3-bet. But versus half pot, I'm just gonna fold flop. I'm gonna 4-bet here with the king queen off. This is a good flop to start betting on. Our opponent's just gonna miss a lot. We have a club, which is nice. Barrel turn. Basically, just like the 10 of clubs should actually just. I've been over to the queen, and this 10 of clubs should block more continues than folds, and then we're gonna bluff this hand on the river and expect a fold if he doesn't have a very good hand. He'll have ace queen, I guess, and then have some flushes, but I think a lot of the time he's just gonna have queen 7, queen 9, 8x of any spade draw that miss. Random 8x. Yeah. So I think it's also a spot you could use smaller than all in. I'd probably want, like, in theory, like 2 sizes there. I think 10 of clubs doesn't actually block that many flushes. And so if you're going like from a theory standpoint, we block like 10-6 of clubs, 10-8 of clubs. He could call turn with like king 10 of clubs. But typically in a spot like this, you'd want to just have a higher club because it's easiest for him, because it's just like the way the cards are, it's easiest for him to get to the river with just like a high club. Just gonna start with a small bet here and proceed. I think like when I get called here, my equity's not great, but his range is wide. I think he's just gonna fold a lot of his like random overcards, and based on the way this opponent has played thus far, I don't necessarily think if I check, he's going to do a ton of bluffing with those hands anyways. So therefore, I won't necessarily benefit from keeping in his bluffs. They'll just like realize equity for free. Very low equity hand that doesn't really benefit from betting. Bottom right, like if we're behind, we're basically dead, and then if we're ahead, there's not a ton of reason to bet. So I think I'm just gonna fold this hand. You don't get to fold that much in this line, but a jack just seems particularly bad for this line. It's a spot where I'd rather call like 5 deuce, because if he has a 5, he's going to bluff the turn a lot. Therefore, having a 5 on the river will like unblock bluffs, whereas a jack, if he stabs the flop too wide, I call, gets that turn, jack club's going to check a lot, gets that river, and he's like, jack 8 offsuit. It's a reasonable spot to just go for the half pot bluff. So I don't necessarily think that spot's like super over bluffed either. So it's not a spot where I think I just want to like call anything that beats a bluff. So being somewhat disciplined with our decision there. I don't necessarily think this is the type of opponent we want to, he's playing wide, but he's not. He's playing more like a limp strategy wide or call, when someone else raises. His raising range is probably still too wide. Or, if he's limp, he could also be limping his best hands and raising his, less good hands. Like a lot of stuff could be going on there. But I just think my hand won't necessarily benefit that much from isolating. I don't know if this opponent is really going to like reopen the betting here that often, so I think I'm just gonna 4-bet myself. And just, I can do anything here. Bet small, bet medium, check. Board's not great for my range. Going to check. Obviously call it off. And I'm just gonna run it once for the pain. Diamond. I was considering a lot of options top right, but we have river the nuts. That's always a good thing. And versus this size. Unblocking 2 pair. I'm just gonna go all in. We have the nuts. We unblock 2 pair. Unblock sets. Also, it could be a big disaster if our opponent has like jack 4 of hearts and I raise and he doesn't put all the money in himself. So, not that I think his bet size is particularly strong when he takes that size in the river, but definitely gonna want some large raises there. I'm gonna isolate here with jack. This guy's playing very wide, so jack 9's kind of just ahead of a wide range. Having both suits here seems like a reasonable spot to start betting. And this is not a turn my opponent's going to interact with very much, so I'm gonna just barrel again. And I can do, I think in this spot, I'm mainly just trying to get him to fold a hand that's worse than a king. So I'm just going to go for this size. I expect to get called by a king. But, alright. And I expect to get jammed on by good hands. Top right, limp pot, just gonna go all the way to the river, try to show down. Just of note that if we see our opponent show down 5 high there, doesn't mean they're not bluffing any spot, but it means they the pots maybe he's decided he's not interested in. He's not going to bluff no matter what. So once he's checked twice, the check bluff might not be part of his arsenal. Start with the raise with ace king. Gonna mix open and fold with 10-8 off. Open this time. Obviously fold to a 3-bet, but good result. All right, round 2. Slightly stronger hand this time. Obviously defend versus a 3-bet here if we face one. Multi-way. Not a board we can c-bet, especially multi-way, like range. So I guess especially with this player in the pot, I'm just going to go for a bigger size. But unfortunately just take it down. Thinking if we were heads up, I could definitely just like exploitively go as big as I like on that flop. I think multi-way with a reg, you need to be at least somewhat realistic with your flop size. I guess it depends. Depends how crazy the recreational player in the hand is, right? If say he's folding say he never folds anything on the flop, right? He just has 0% fold to c-bet no matter what size you take. Then obviously shoving could be reasonable with ace queen there. But absent of that sort of information, I mean, I don't love that this guy's betting based on what we've seen from him, but I have like a 2-out draw to the nuts, so I'm gonna call. Reasonable. Like he might just milk me here 3 streets of like ace queen, or is he even 3-betting? Like pocket kings wouldn't even be like, honestly wouldn't even be that shocked if I see pocket kings here on the river. But I also just wouldn't be surprised to just see, okay, he goes up on the river, so I think now we'll just fold. Especially because of how we saw him play the 5-4. Oh my gosh, he actually, that's hilarious. So I mean, good on him for slightly increasing his size on the river. After maybe he was setting that play up with the 5-4 off. So he shows down the 5-4 because it was a small pot to set up the min bet 1/3 pot bluff. He was just luring me in with the first one. Unfortunately, even though I block like the river straight here, going to have to be pretty selective calling here. And although he doesn't have a ton of bluffs with either of my cards, he can still have hands like 10-8 offsuit without a spade, ace-10 maybe with a spade. So I mean, I just think I have to fold without a spade on this river. But It's close. When he takes that size, it's like he's almost kind of like he didn't overbet, so he's almost repping like not a flush. So maybe my hand's actually a reasonable call because I block Jack 10, I block his like queen, king, queen, pocket queens type hands. He doesn't have that many bluffs to contain the 10 of clubs. It's like potentially some ace 10 with a ace of spades. And then not a ton else, a 10-8 with the 10 of clubs, 8 of spades, potentially. That's about it. So maybe that spot's closer versus that size. I start with a small bet here, and I'm going to 3-bet the pocket nines. It actually would have been reasonable to call here just to keep the big blind in, but it's also fine to 3-bet. And here I'm just going to show down if allowed. All right, we were allowed. That's a spot where versus my small bet, he does have to float like a reasonable amount of weak holdings. But it's going to be hard for him to arrive at the river with a worse hand than what he just showed me, so just something to note. And you don't always go from bottom up to determine what to bluff, right? It's not always like I check my king highs and I bluff my jack highs. But the wider the range spot, the more that's true. Just because the wider the range, the more showdown high cards have. As soon as ranges get narrow, where your high cards have basically no like almost no showdown, then things will change. But in a quarter pot bet, check turn line, you could basically just go with like what are my weakest hands and start bluffing those. Top left, check. I think I want to value bet now. I'm gonna defend aces as call sometimes. Yeah, we'll do this one. Not the best flop. Okay. So I block. We've seen. No, this is a different guy. So he doesn't have a jack. I block a 9. I think I'm gonna just go small and hope he does something against us. Call here with aces. My hand actually will want to fast play sometimes on turn. Okay, first check, which basically always want to bet. It's not amazing having the ace diamonds here if I get raised, but I think in this spot he can have worse for value, like at least pocket kings. So I don't think it's like super important here. There'd be spots where, again, if ranges were more narrow, that this card would be really bad. But I think here, yeah, like I said, you can just have pocket kings. So that's twice where we say one hand and they happen to have that exact hand. Top left, sure, I'll run 3 times. Top left. 8s is just going to make a really bad turn call. I just would rather have any pair on the board, basically. So this spot didn't really matter, but I did pre-flop. If I had gone all in, or sorry, if I had 4-bet, he would have gone all in, most likely. And then post-flop kind of plays itself. Kings here, I'm just always all in. Trap aces, call some other medium strength hands. Kings just always all in. And we get the we go aces over kings bottom left, and now kings and aces top right. So everything evens out except for a queen on the river. Oh, but we can't. 2 would be greedy, right? Yeah, I'll take 1. Very nice. I'll take half the pot. Seems fair. Obviously, if this guy goes all in, we fold. But I think even in this formation, actually, he should be a bit wider. But the problem is, if we don't connect, we're gonna have like his range is relatively narrow. We actually like lose to his bluffing region even. So I'm just gonna fold flop, especially versus half pot. Start with a bet down here. It's going to be very difficult for me to block a 6 just with my 3-bet range in this spot. So just having 2 overcards to the 9 is going to be reasonable. And I'm going to barrel here and then probably be selective versus opponent on river. On hearts, I'm going to give up. Like, so part of the bluffing, part of the hands I want to bluff against on the river are, ace, queen of hearts, ace, jack of hearts, maybe even king, queen of hearts. So on this river, I'm going to just choose mainly heart holdings. It's also actually not amazing to have a 10 here because we want him to have pocket 10s. That's actually, a hand that's relatively high in his range. That's indifferent. Unfortunately, this hand potentially would have folded. But I mean, the fact that he called this turn pretty happily, like it was a relatively quick turn call, means he might not be a folder. I mean, obviously any pocket pair there can defend versus the bet, but you have to be, like, my range is quite strong. So every pocket pair has to like at least think about it. That seems like a pretty reasonable spot to call it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Those really help us out. And tune in to the channel for more content coming soon. All right, take it easy, guys.